My neighbor is renovating their house. I know this because I can hear it from basically every room in my house. Drilling in the morning, hammering around noon. At some point there was something that sounded like a small explosion, but I think that was just cement being mixed. It's fine. That's just what renovation sounds like. I've gotten used to it. What I haven't quite gotten used to is how this one construction project somehow became a topic of interest for people who don't live on my street, haven't seen the house, and have absolutely no connection to whatever's being built. My mom came home the other day with a report, not from the renovation site, from the market around the corner, where apparently the progress of my neighbor's house is being tracked, analyzed, and delivered as news. The report: "It's different when people are already rich, isn't it?" Which translates roughly to, "You can really tell when someone has money," and my internal response, which I did not say out loud because I'm not trying to start anything: "Yeah, so."
Let me explain the warung for anyone watching this who didn't grow up in Indonesia. A warung is a small shop, usually run by one person, sometimes a couple. You can buy snacks, drinks, basic supplies, phone credit, maybe a simple meal. It's a utility, a practical thing you need. But it's also, in a village or small town setting, the closest thing to a community hub that most neighborhoods have. People stop in multiple times a day. They stand around for a few minutes or sometimes much longer, and while they're there, they talk about everything. About the price of things, about their kids, about what's happening in the neighborhood, about what they saw on their way here, about what someone else told them earlier. Information moves through the warung the way water moves through a pipe, constantly in every direction with very little friction. Which means that my neighbor's renovation, a private decision made by a private family about their own property, has already been discussed, assessed, and delivered to my household via a third party who heard it from someone who lives 3 streets away. I want to be clear, I'm not judging the warung ibu. She's doing what the warung has always done. She's the node in a social network that genuinely serves the community in a lot of ways. The gossip is almost a byproduct of the connection. You can't have one without occasionally getting the other. But the content of what gets transmitted is worth looking at because it tells you something.
Let's actually look at the comment for a second. It's different when people are already rich, isn't it? On the surface, it sounds like an observation, a neutral statement of fact. Rich people can do things that other people can't. That's true. That's just how money works. But there's something underneath it that's worth unpacking. Because if it was purely a factual observation, there would be no reason to say it. You wouldn't comment on the sky being blue as news. The fact that it gets said out loud to another person as a piece of information worth sharing means it's carrying some emotional weight. And I think that weight is comparison. Not necessarily envy in the dramatic sense, more like a small reflexive measurement. Someone in this neighborhood is doing something visibly better than before, and that fact is being noted, processed, named. The comment isn't really about the neighbor. It's about the person saying it and the feelings that get activated when you watch someone nearby move upward while you feel like you're standing still. Which is a genuinely human thing to feel. I'm not criticizing that. Comparison is baked into how we understand our own position in the community. Before there were algorithms to show us curated versions of other people's lives, there was the neighborhood. And you could see very directly what the people around you were building. The difference is what you do with that feeling. And "it's different when people are already rich, isn't it?" said to someone else in a shop as a comment about a neighbor's house is a way of releasing that feeling outward rather than doing anything with it. Here's something I've come to understand about gossip in tight-knit communities, which I think explains a lot. In a small village or kampung, everyone's lives are genuinely intertwined. You share infrastructure, you know each other's families, your kids grew up together, your parents have history with their parents. The boundaries between households are more permeable than they are in a city where you might not know the name of the person who lives next door. In that kind of environment, paying attention to what's happening around you isn't nosiness, it's a survival skill. Historically, it was important to know who in your community was doing well, who was struggling, who might need help, who might be a risk. Information about your neighbors was practical. The gossip we have now is a descendant of that. It's the same impulse, still running, but in a context where most of it doesn't need to serve that function anymore. The neighbor renovating their house isn't information I need in order to make a decision about anything. But the instinct to notice it, comment on it, share it, that's old. That's older than any of us. The problem comes when that instinct gets attached to comparison and resentment instead of genuine curiosity or connection. When the information becomes a way of processing your own feelings about your own life, using someone else's situation as the material. And that's what I hear in, it's different when people are already rich, isn't it? Not malice, just someone doing what humans do, using the world around them to feel out where they stand. The renovation is just the prompt. It could have been anything.
So here's my actual response when my mom told me what the other people at the Warung said. Internally, it was something like, okay, so what's it to you? And I sat with that for a bit because I didn't want to just dismiss the whole thing without actually thinking about why I respond that way when the generation before me responds differently. I think a big part of it is that I grew up with social media, which sounds counterintuitive. Social media is supposed to make comparison worse, and it does in certain ways, but it also means I've been exposed to an almost unlimited number of people doing well, building things, moving up. It's so constant that it eventually just becomes noise. You can't maintain emotional investment in every success story you scroll past. Your brain learns eventually to let it go. Whereas in a village where you personally know everyone and the information comes through a human who is looking you in the face when she says it, it lands differently. It's personal in a way that an Instagram post isn't. So I'm not saying my reaction is more evolved or better. I'm saying it's the product of a different information diet. I've just been desensitized to other people's success in a way that someone whose main source of community news is the local Warung hasn't been. And also, genuinely, I've heard the drilling for 3 weeks. At this point, it's just part of the ambient noise of my life. The renovation is background now. It doesn't register as news, and registers as Tuesday.
Here's where I actually land on all of this. My neighbor is building something, and as far as I can tell, they're doing it because they want to, because they can afford to, and because it's their house. None of those things involve me. None of those things have any bearing on my life. They are not doing this at me. And yet somehow their renovation has generated a news cycle in my local community. It's been noticed, discussed, evaluated, and delivered to me as a piece of information I apparently needed to have. What I actually need to have, most days, is just some water and the ability to focus on whatever I'm working on. The drilling is honestly fine. I've tuned it out. What's slightly harder to tune out is the feeling that other people's choices are constantly being processed through a lens of comparison and commentary before anyone asks whether they actually affect anyone else. I don't think the other people at the Warung is a bad person. I don't think my mom is a bad person for coming home with what she heard. This is just how community information flows in places like where I grew up. It's old behavior. It's human behavior, and it's not going anywhere. But I think the attitude that probably serves everyone better, the one I'm genuinely trying to practice, is to let people build their things without narrating it, without scoring it against your own situation, without turning someone else's good news into something that needs to be discussed over snacks at the Warung. They're renovating. Good for them. Genuinely. If you grew up somewhere like this, drop a comment. I'd love to hear what the gossip is like in your neighborhood. And subscribe if you want more of this kind of thing. I'll see you in the next one.